Seashells look like souvenirs, but they are really abandoned architecture. Most shells are made by mollusks, animals such as snails, clams, scallops, cowries, conchs, and whelks. The shell is not a random decoration. It is a growing protective structure built from minerals and protein, shaped by the animal inside and by the dangers around it. In this video, we will look at 10 beautiful shell types and the stories behind their names: conch, cowrie, scallop, nautilus, murex, auger or turritella, olive, moonsnail, abalone, and whelk. We will also make one important side note about the sand dollar, because people collect it with shells, but biologically it is not a mollusk shell. That distinction matters, because knowing the name changes what you are actually seeing on the beach. Start with the conch. The word conch is often used for large sea snail shells with a strong spiral and a flared opening, although exact naming depends on the species and region. Many people imagine a pink queen conch-style shell, but there are different conchs and conch-like shells. The name became famous because these shells are big, durable, and visually dramatic. In human history, conch shells were sometimes used as horns, ceremonial objects, or symbols of the sea. But for the animal, the shell was practical. It was armor, balance, and a place to withdraw from danger. That is the first lesson: a shell can become a human symbol after it stops being an animal home. Cowries are almost the opposite shape, smaller, smooth, glossy, and rounded like polished porcelain. A cowrie shell has a narrow slit-like opening underneath, and many species have patterns that look painted. Cowries became ornaments, charms, and in some places a form of money because they were durable, portable, recognizable, and difficult enough to imitate before modern manufacturing. Their beauty is not just surface shine. A living cowrie can extend tissue over the shell, helping keep it polished and patterned. So when you see a cowrie, you are looking at both biology and history. The same shell can tell a story about marine protection, trade, jewelry, and human value systems. The scallop shell is famous because it looks like a fan. Its ridges radiate outward, making it easy to draw, carve, and recognize from a distance. Scallops are bivalves, meaning the full animal has two hinged shells, or valves. Unlike many clams, some scallops can swim by rapidly clapping their shells, pushing water, and moving in bursts. That makes the scallop more active than people imagine when they think of a shell sitting in sand. The scallop shape also became a cultural icon, appearing in art, architecture, pilgrimage symbols, and beach design. It is one of the best examples of a natural form becoming a visual shorthand for travel, coastlines, and the sea. The nautilus shell is famous for its chambers and spiral. A nautilus is a cephalopod, related to octopuses and squids, but unlike them it keeps a visible external shell. Inside, the shell has chambers that help with buoyancy as the animal grows and moves through the water. People often use nautilus shells to talk about mathematical spirals, but it is better not to overclaim. Real shells are biological structures, not perfect classroom diagrams. Their curves come from growth, survival, and physics, with natural variation. That makes the nautilus more interesting, not less. It is beautiful because it is a living engineering solution, not because it obeys a simplified myth perfectly. Murex shells can look fierce: spines, points, ridges, and dramatic sculptural shapes. The name murex is associated with a group of sea snails, and some relatives are historically linked to ancient purple dyes. That dye history made certain murex-related snails economically and culturally important, because purple color was once rare and expensive. The shell itself, though, was built for life on the seafloor, not for museums. Spines and thick shapes can help with defense, camouflage, or stability, depending on the species and environment. A murex shell reminds us that what humans call beautiful may have started as a survival strategy: harder to swallow, harder to crush, harder to ignore. Auger shells and turritella-like shells are long, narrow spirals that look almost like tiny drills or towers. The word auger points to that screw-like shape. Turritella is a name often associated with high-spired fossil and living shells, although collectors sometimes use names loosely, so identification should be careful. These shells are useful for learning shape language. Not every spiral shell is the same. Some are broad and heavy, some are flat, and some stretch upward into a tight tower. The form tells you something about the animal lineage and lifestyle, but it is not a simple one-to-one code. Beach names are useful starting points. Exact species identification needs location, size, opening shape, and expert references. Olive shells are smooth, shiny, and streamlined, often shaped like polished little olives. Many have subtle bands or marbled patterns. Their shape is not an accident. A smooth shell can help a snail move through sand, and many olive snails are active burrowers or hunters in sandy environments. Then there is the moon snail, famous for its round, smooth shell and for the drilled holes it can leave in other shells. Moon snails are predators. They can bore into clams and other mollusks, leaving a neat circular hole that beachcombers often notice. That tiny hole is not decoration. It is evidence of a feeding event, a small fossil-like clue from beach life. Abalone shells may be rough and plain on the outside, but inside they can glow with nacre, iridescent layers that shift green, blue, pink, and silver. Abalone are marine snails with flattened shells and a row of respiratory holes. Their inner shine made them important for jewelry and decoration, but the animal built the shell as protection. Whelks are another group of sea snails, often with sturdy spiral shells and a strong opening. Many whelks are predators or scavengers, depending on species. Together, abalone and whelks show two different shell personalities, one flattened and shimmering, one strong and spiral. Both are functional first, beautiful second. Now the sand dollar note. People often collect sand dollars with shells, but a sand dollar is not a mollusk shell. It is the skeleton, or test, of a flattened sea urchin and echinoderm related to sea stars and sea urchins. That does not make it less fascinating. It just means the name shell would be biologically misleading. This is the point of learning shell names. Names prevent lazy seeing. A conch is not a cowrie. A scallop is not a nautilus. A moon snail hole is not just damage. A sand dollar is not the same kind of object as a clam shell. Once you know the names, the beach stops being a pile of pretty shapes and becomes a map of animal lives.